Oh yeah, welcome back to the Project Grow Show. My name is Adrian Boysel, and I'm grateful to be back with you guys today for another episode. This one is probably going to be my favorite one I've ever done. I'm going to put that out there right at the beginning. I'm getting the honor and the pleasure to be here with a very, very special guest, a mentor, an inspiration, somebody that is local like me, actually born and raised in Roseville, California, for most of his life like I am, and it's just an honor to be able to have him here. But first, before I introduce him, I just want to give you guys a little context and a little bit of a backstory of how he's impacted my life. So our guest today is Mark Haney, and Mark is an entrepreneur, a business owner, small business owner in Sacramento. And I started hearing about him probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And he started putting events together, and an angel investor and doing a lot of different things in the business world here in Sacramento. And his name kept popping up. And then shortly after, I saw that he had a radio show, and I started following his radio show and said, oh wow, I hadn't heard of this guy before. And then I started meeting people who actually knew Mark, and they started telling me stories of, oh man, he sold his company and he's an incredible guy and he loves entrepreneurship. And I said, man, I got to meet this guy. I got to figure out how I got to meet this guy. And it was about probably a year later, I came into contact with, I believe it was one of his people on his team, and they were doing an event. And so I went out to one of his events. And at that event, I actually bumped into some old friends of mine that I had known for 15, almost 20 years, rekindled some existing relationships, some other friendships that I'd had, and people that I was actively working with. It was one of my friends that invited me out there. And I went to one of Mark's events, and it was just a phenomenal event, a lot of incredible people. And I was like, wow, this is what Sacramento needs more of. And sure enough, he did another event, and I kept going. And each one of those events, I kept meeting new people, having new experiences. And it was during a time around 2018 when I was actually experiencing and going through the hardest, challenging, and most biggest struggle of my entrepreneurial career. It was literally the time where I was ready to just call it quits, walk away, and say, you know what, maybe I'll just go get a 9-to-5 doing marketing somewhere and work my way up the ladder of the corporate world. And I really knew deep down in my heart that's not what I wanted, but it was because of Mark's events that he put on here in Sacramento that rekindled the relationships. And I had realized that it wasn't anything going on in the business world or even so much in my personal life, but it was me as a person being complacent in what I was doing on a day-to-day basis, just staying in my office all day, maybe making some phone calls, trying to be the CEO, trying to run an agency, but I wasn't putting myself out there, getting into the marketplace, getting into the community, and surrounding myself with amazing people that were also doing things in their businesses. And when I started to do that, I saw things started to turn around 180 degrees. And I went from struggling to thriving in a very, very short amount of time. And that was because of Mark and Mark's team and Mark's people that he has around him. Actually, I just remembered who it was. It was a guy named Mito Eldon. Mito's the one that invited me and got me kind of in Mark's circle. And I even got to pitch Mark on a company called Instagraphics. And then I was invited by a guy named Garrett to come to the Hanging with Haney. So Mark brought me into his community, into his circle, maybe not even knowing, just through his great people that he had around him. And he really helped me out in just a significant way. And so today I get the honor and the privilege to be able to have Mark Haney on the show. And I'm just so grateful that you're here. So let's go ahead and introduce Mr. Mark Haney.
Well, Adrian, I am honored, and I love what you are doing. You know, you talk about community, and you're building a community. I think in each of us, in each of our worlds, we're either part of a community or we're part of building a community. And I think there's something very, I guess, underestimated in that word. It seems kind of cliche, if you will, but the people you put in our lives, we put in our lives, are really so important. So if you are plugged into the right community, a community that brings out what you're best at, your gifts, your hopes, your dreams, I mean, that community can be invaluable. But I liked also what you said is, right, the answer is you, right? So the way that those people influence you are beautiful. And then you have turned it around and you're building something really cool and you're helping a lot of people. So hats off to you, Adrian, and just excited to be on your podcast. So,
Yeah.
Let's have some fun.
Season 3, yeah. So I started over at Salem with the Project Grow Show. And now I realized that my audience and my tribe was wanting it on the digital platforms, on the shows, on YouTube. And so I've moved it off of radio and moved it onto the digital. And I've seen tremendous growth because of that. In fact, Brian's episode that he and I did together, welcoming him onto the team, was the most popular episode that we had done so far, which was really, really cool. And so just exciting to be able to make those pivots and make those changes within myself and within my team and in my company, and just learning through that. So I've learned a lot from you. I've gained a lot of friends and community through what you've done. And I just want other people to be able to really get the impact of that and how important that community really is, because it is thrown around a lot, especially like in the ministry world and church world, is community, community, community. But there's so much value and so much momentum that can happen in such a short amount of time when you start putting together these events. You know, we did tag talks. I mean, we've crossed paths now in so many different ways and so many times. It's kind of surprising that it took so long for actually us to do a show together, right? So I just think that that's really neat, that community aspect. But I want people that, you know, because I ask around a lot with people, especially when I brought Brian on board. I'm going, hey, do you guys know who Mark Haney is? And a lot of people said yes, but there was a number of people that were like, no, I don't know who that is. And whether they've been working 9 to 5s or they got their head down, it blows me away that people don't know who you are. So for some of the people that are watching this in Maryland, and I have a bunch of followers all across the country, let's introduce you and just kind of give people a little bit of your background and who you are.
You bet. Yeah. So we've got something here called Haney Biz. And we focus on really backing the hometown entrepreneur here in the Sacramento region. We provide access to capital, expertise, and the community. And part of that is around my investment. So you mentioned that a little bit, but a lot of times people are like trying to figure out how to grow their businesses. Some of the time they've got these gaps that they need to fill, and many times it's around investment. So I've now invested or owned something like 40 plus companies here in the Sacramento region, plus invested into, I think, every private equity venture capital company in the region. So really around my hometown, like you and I really love helping our hometown. So that's really sort of where that's really what I'm focused on, I think, for the most part. But as you mentioned, I sold some companies a number of years ago, and that kind of put me in a place in my life where, what am I going to do? What do I want to be? And I really wasn't prepared for that. So it's really been, I'd say, a quest, if you will, backed by this mission statement that I wrote after leaving my company. And really it's been that mission statement around creating opportunity for my family, my friends, and my community. That mission statement has kind of served as the foundation for all of my choices the majority of my business choices over the last several years. And I'm having more fun right now probably than I ever have. So anyway, proud to be here, and happy to dive into any aspect of what I do or where I've been.
Yeah, and I think I was reflecting on this for the last day since Brian told me that you were going to make the time to do this. I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I've been reflecting on it and just thinking, what are the questions? I'm very like off the cuff, in the moment. I'm quick. I come up with an idea or a question, but I wanted to have some things and frame some things that I thought were really important for people to understand of the journey of entrepreneurship, right? Born in Roseville, grew up in the area, in the Sacramento region. You didn't start off just, at 18 years old. I'm a business owner, right? There's a journey that you went along to reach where you reached, of selling your company and now helping other entrepreneurs and doing venture capital. Like, everybody sees the end result. They didn't see the journey. And for me, that's what I'm most interested in, because as an entrepreneur, I get impatient at times. I get complacent at times. I compare myself to other entrepreneurs in town, or other people, not just in town, but across the country. The big, this guy owns the #1 marketing agency in the whole world. And I'm like, man, he's only 31. Why am I not there yet, right? Things like that. So I want to look and just kind of dive in with you. I think the biggest thing is, let's look at the entrepreneurial journey of a business owner or an entrepreneur, and what that really looks like, and where you started to where you're at today. How did you get into the field that you got into that led you to being able to sell a company?
So video stores, some of your listeners may be old enough to remember when video stores were cool. As that became less and less true, my brother and I, as business partners, ended up lucking our way into sort of a pivot with a really horrific decision. So we own 12 video stores here in the Sacramento region, and Blockbuster in Hollywood next to everyone. But the knowledge that streaming and Netflix and all that was on the horizon, and what are we going to do? So you end up sort of scaling the business or building the business in a way that is profitable, but how do you make it sustainable in an industry that's going to go away inevitably? We made the decision, I'll call it the get rich quick decision, to take some of our lines of credit, because we're already heavily in debt, but we had open lines of credit for continued growth, and we tapped into some of those lines of credit, and we loaned a guy some money on kind of a get rich quick real estate, small business thing. He was going through a lawsuit with Panasonic. As he won the lawsuit, we were going to get a big payday because we were helping him out at a time of crisis. And sadly, we dumped a big piece of our net worth into this loan, knowing we we're going to get paid back in about 30 days as soon as the lawsuit ended. And sadly, he filed bankruptcy on us, and we were stuck severely in debt, millions in debt. And what are we going to do? Well, he had this fledgling company that was also as part of the bankruptcy. And we were able to go to the bankruptcy creditors and go, hey, how about we take this company in exchange for our debt? And it was a small electronics hardware company. And so we pivoted in a random course of events that took about 4 months, and we were the owners of this electronics company that we had no knowledge of, other than our mom and dad owned a TV shop when we were kids, so we knew a little bit about TVs and video and that kind of thing. Video stores. And then with that, we turned that into a security camera group of companies. It wasn't security cameras when we got into it, but it became security cameras because the other things that we were doing were not working. So we ended up pivoting that company into security cameras, grew that along with the growth of security, phased out of the video stores profitably. And then we ended up ultimately selling the security camera companies. And that was really kind of a bad decision turned into a life-changing, horrific set of circumstances that turned out positive.
Wow. So from crisis came opportunity. That's actually one of the things a mentor taught me that bought my first company. He goes, you got to remember this, from crisis comes opportunity. And now every time I have some sort of a crisis, I just take a step back and I try to be like water and just let it flow. And I go, okay, what's the opportunity? What's the learning lesson in this situation? And you did the same thing where you were like, okay, how are we going to pivot ourselves out of this huge loss and turn this into an opportunity?
Yeah, it's amazing how your creativity, there's creativity that I think we all have that is not used until we're in that time of crisis. When you get when you get yourself in a time of crisis, all of a sudden you're the most creative mofo in the world, man. You get creative as hell when you're thinking about losing your house.
And especially when your family's on the line and things like that. When your back's up against the wall. I mean, there's been a bunch of motivational videos that we've produced, and it talks about that a lot, is when your back's up against the wall, you got nowhere else to go. You're either going to push or you're going to hit and fall and hit the ground and give up and curl into a fetal position. And that's not the personality of you or I. And I think, there's some of those people out there, but that resiliency is really what I think makes an entrepreneur special.
Yeah. Some people say failure is not an option. I have a twist on that. Success is not an option, right? So I think we are in a society, and it's becoming, I feel like, more commonplace to really sort of embrace our failures and all that, which is fine. But I don't mean to glamorize failure. It's a part of life, but you don't need to go out of business, right? I think the reason what people say, well, I ran out of money or this and that, the industry changed. Well, you know what? You decided to quit. So some people just don't quit, and they decide to attack from a different direction. And I really think that's the definition of a successful entrepreneur. Look at COVID. We're sitting here in the middle of COVID. That's crushing certain types of businesses. Do you quit, or do you attack from a different direction? And I think as much as people think about quitting, it's a personality trait that I think the most successful entrepreneurs don't end up aspiring to.
Yeah. Yeah, you either double down and go all in and work even harder during times like this. And I mean, my businesses, when I had my printing company, I started it in 2007 and sold it in 2011. Started at the very beginning of the down economy and sold it, not at the top, but at a great place, and built it during literally the lowest point we'd had in 50 years, right? And so I was lucky enough to work and just hustle my butt through that. But I could have sat back and not taken action. And I feel like that is an important lesson as well. Is it's not sometimes just about quitting. Quitting can be just not taking action and just sitting there complacent and not doing anything about it when situations like this happen. Oh, I'm just going to cut all my advertising. I'm just going to cut this. I'm going to cut that, and try to scale back and then just wait and weather the storm. You're going to get swooped up and carried away, I think. So for me, it's like I'm going to double down. If my advertising was $1,000, I'm going to now double it to $2,000, and I'm going to have to just work harder to get my brand out there, spend more time. And I think there's a quote that you say about sales that I'll leave to you, but there's some good quotes in that.
There's no problem more sales won't fix. And that's just a motto that we took, because we went from a couple million in sales to 35 million in probably about 4 or 5 years, and then we took that in another 4 or 5 years, right? Well, then we hovered in around the $25-35 million range for several years in sales, and then we took it upon ourselves to become the number one video security distributor in America, and that took another 4 or 5 years to get up to a couple $100 million. So it really was these series of sprints. Some people may look at that as, it's a marathon. You hear those kind of cliche things all the time in life. And it's like, it's a marathon. Yeah. But really winning is about knowing when to sprint and when to pause a little bit, because nobody can sprint for 20 years straight.
Nope.
But we can sprint for periods of time when game is on the line from a negative standpoint, or even a positive opportunistic standpoint. So knowing when to sprint, when to not be taking the play off, if you will, or taking the year off, is sort of something that can become addictive in nature. And I think Mike,
it is. It really
is. This series of sprints, if you will, or going all in on, I call it going all in on what you know, right? So you dabble, and then when you finally figure out something that feels like it might be working, okay, let's freaking sprint now. Now it's time to rock.
Yeah, I mean, sprints aren't sustainable. Even if you're an amazing runner, you're only going to be able to go so far before you gas out. And so I think it's important to know when to slow down on the track too. So I think what you just said right there, people should really listen to that, maybe even rewind it and rewatch that piece, because you got to understand when it's time to go fast and when it's time to slow down and let other people kind of catch up and be with you, because you have other people that are with you. And if you're just constantly go, not only are you going to burn yourself out, but you're going to leave all the amazing people behind. So I'm learning that not just in my business life, but also my personal life, relationships, marriages, friendships. Sometimes you need to slow your car down on the racetrack and let other people come with you to kind of lead them along the way, or you're going to leave them behind. And you need those people. We need those people along our journey. They're absolutely critical. So I think that's a really, really important gold nugget in this already. That's awesome. Okay, so the second step then that I see along your journey, so you reach that huge level of success. Like for me, one of my goals is I want to build Adrian Graphics and Marketing and the divisions that I have, and then be able to literally step out of the business and let it continue to run or sell it. I don't really have an exact exit plan for this business, because I can see it being a generational thing too. But my goal is to build enough authority and build enough of a foundation where I have resources, financial and team, to be able to go out there and mentor youth, and being able to take all the knowledge and the skills and the passion, the creativity, and all those things from all the people around me, and start teaching other people who were where I was, 16, homeless on the streets, to where I am today, and be able to realize that they have a potential and a future for their life. So for me, that's like getting to that point. I have like this first kind of benchmark that I want to reach. I want to get to the business to where it's a 7-8 figure business where I can step out of it and the business runs without me. Then step 2 is going in and actually mentoring youth. But outside of that, if once I start doing that, I don't really have another goal endpoint. For you, money only means so much, right? You build a business, you learn, you grow, you become a better entrepreneur, a better leader, better business owner. You overcome imposter syndrome, which we can talk about. You can overcome a lot of different things along your journey. And then you sell a company and you make all this money. And you're like, oh, well, now what, right? What in the beginning, I asked this question, what do you have to prove? In the beginning, you want to prove it to your family, to your friends, and to your loved ones, and the people that think that didn't think you could do it, that you can do it. And then once you reach that point and you actually do it, then what? What do you have to prove? Now it's like you prove it to the world, you prove it to yourself. Like, how do you continue to find that next thing? And I think you could probably speak to this really well, because this is something that you're familiar with.
How to deal with that next stage. It's interesting. I want to make sure that I compliment you on the way that you're thinking in a step-by-step progression. It doesn't mean when you start thinking about getting your business to a certain critical mass in order to give you more choices to help youth, and many people want to spend time with their family. We all have these things that we might want to do beyond the business, maybe even want to sell the business and do other things. But it takes this critical mass is the size of your business is needed in order for you to step away. And so each business is a little bit different, but many times that requires a multi-million-dollar business. Otherwise, there's this enormous risk that you're going to get drawn back in. Mm-hmm. And I see that a lot of times in small business, especially service type businesses. It's very reliant on the CEO. He or she tries to step away, and it's like, there's not enough systems in critical mass to really allow you to do that, because the founder is so key to making that work. So I would agree with you. Find that critical mass before you spend too much of your time outside the business, and that looks differently for everybody. And for a lot of us, we think about what's the total value of the company need to be worth in order for me to sort of have de-risked that. Because and the other thing I would say about that is, if it's operating without you, your company's going to be much more valuable to other people. So
that's true.
A lot of opportunity for your teammates, for sure, and it's going to be valuable if you decide to exit. You just have more choices if your company is sort of self-sustaining.
That's right.
But in terms of what do you have to prove, this is an interesting thing. And, maybe making myself a little bit vulnerable, just because I think I don't know what it's like to be 70. I'm 57 years old. I don't know what it's like to be 77 or 87. I can't really speak to that. I can speak to what it's like to be 30, 40, 50, 57. And I don't know that the feeling of needing something substantial in my life in order to prove something. I don't know if that has gone away from me. Now that's me. It may be for other people it's gone away, but I feel like I do have still something to prove. I think my son, as you know, wounded in Afghanistan.
Yep.
I've got a very close family. We're building a family compound. I'm really working. My new quest in life is around discovering optimum health. So, I'm kind of a workout guy. A lot of people know that about me. So I'm still I kind of feel like if you're not growing, you're dying. And it surfaces back to your question around, when you have nothing to prove. And I feel like maybe it's things that happened to us in our childhood. I was the middle child. And, maybe I didn't get hugged enough as a child, but I still feel like I have this thing to prove to myself or to my dad or mom who have passed away, a long, long time ago. But it's like, man, I feel like I want to make them proud. I feel like I want to make my son proud. All the people that he fought with proud. I want to make my wife proud of 35 years. My daughter, my grandkids. It's like, gosh, I still feel like I have something to prove to them, and I want to be meaningful to them, not that old guy in the rocking chair. Oh, these damn kids today, and if they were, I call that old man syndrome. And like, that's very unattractive to me in
Yeah.
terms of who I want to be. And I think it's driven by something to prove. And it doesn't go away for some of us, Adrian. It still exists. And that's when the vulnerable Mark coming out is like, gosh, for some reason that hasn't gone away for me. And maybe in some ways still drives me today.
Yeah, you haven't lost that hunger, which I think is important, and always, like dangling the carrot out there. There's always something. And for me, it was for the longest time, for the first 10 years of my career, it was just simply, I love being creative, I love doing graphic design, and I love entrepreneurship and small businesses. So I'm going to go out there and help them. And if I can make great money in the meantime, awesome. And that was my only mission on a day-to-day. Just keep going out there, helping as many people as I can. I just want to make great money. Do I want to continue to try to grow and make more and more money? Sure. But is that really my motivator? No. And I don't think I grew my revenue as fast because I wasn't hungry. I wasn't chasing after the money. I was fulfilled. I was completely content and happy with what I was doing on a day-to-day basis because I was walking out what my calling and what my purpose was that I thought was, and I think is part of the journey at that time. And then I had a face-to-face with a close mentor of mine who's just a few years older than me, and he asked me this, he has this 3-5-7 strategy that he does, and he asked me 3 words, and then 5 words, and then 7 words, and then he regurgitated it all back to me, and it literally made me burst into tears. And he's like, it sounds like you want to help at-risk youth and restore broken families. And I was like, and it like literally just like everything inside my spirit, my soul, just like a burning fire of an inferno just lit inside of me. And I was like, that's why he put me here. And when I found that it almost like made me just want to like walk away from everything else that I was working on, because like everything I need to do, I was like, man, I just need to get into ministry full time. And it like, I wanted to go do ministry and help people and pray for people and encourage people and get people off the streets and just go do ministry on a day-to-day basis. But I realized that is part of my life purpose and calling and why I was put here. But that doesn't mean I'm ready for that yet. I can't expect my chapter 10 in chapter 2. You know what I'm saying? So that's
interesting. Yeah, and I respect that in you, and people who are sort of, I would say, that cause driven like what you are. And I probably resonate a little bit more. I resonate with doing the right thing for sure, and doing something impactful for society. I certainly resonate with that, but I feel like I resonate a little bit more with your earlier question, or the conversation point about, making people proud. And I think I want to do things in my life that only I can do. Right. So it's interesting because there's a lot of people that want these same things. And I want my family to wake up either on a daily basis, or maybe I'm a sandbagger at the end of some period of time and go, holy shit, my dad did that. Holy shit, I can't believe my son, a C student from Oakmont High School, did that. And so I took what I thought I had a little bit of strength in
Yep.
putting good people in my life, really, really loyal people in my life, around building businesses. And I'm like, how can I do it in a way that nobody else would even think of? So I'm like, okay, hyper local, 100 millionaires, business partners in my backyard. That's my dream, right? I'm going to affect our community. We're going to ignite an entrepreneurial revolution right here in the hometown we love. I am building my family compound. It's called Haneyville. It's the most badass it's a little town in the making, that anybody who knows or could witness what I'm building with my family, for my family, would just be like, are you kidding me? And the different things that I spend my time doing are in their own way very egotistical, but they're to make these certain people proud and really kind of blow their socks off, not the run of the mill. I just want to be a good guy. I want to do something that's like, holy shit, Dad. I want to have those moments. I enjoy that moment, that state championship of coaching football with my son. I enjoy those moments so much that I spend all my time working toward that that dream, if you will. I call myself the chief dreaming officer here at
Yeah.
Haney because I really spend a lot of my moments thinking about these outcomes and what they look like. As I described, the 100 millionaire business partners in the backyard that all love each other, right? That are all the most successful people in the region, and with all the most successful investors backing them in the region, a powerful group of people committed to loving our hometown and loving one another and creating opportunity. See, this is like a dream that most people, I'm not just building a hedge fund. I'm not just building a private equity company trying to get a return from my investors. I'm trying to build something cool as shit.
Yeah, I mean, and it ties back, which is something I wanted to ask you about, is core values, right? It ties back to your core values: entrepreneurship, business ownership, what it's done for your life and in your journey, and then the impact it's making on your daughter, on your son, and all of your closest people in your life and in your world that you love and care about the most. Watching how it's impacting them as well. I'm not even at that phase yet, but I want to basically get to the core values of what it is that you're doing and share a little bit of that, because I think that's probably something that you've had throughout your entire career. There's core values that you had early on, and there's probably newer ones that you have now, but what are those core values that have driven you and that you hold true to?
Yeah, well, the ones that I look at the number one core value. I'll start with three. I have three core values that are meaningful to me, and they're who I want to be. I strive to be this person, and I think they're who I look for in a close friend. And number one, that's commitment. And I think I'm one of those anybody who's known me, I'm buddies with the guy the people I played Pop Warner football with and Little League with and that kind of thing. People that know me know that I will keep my commitment, come hell or high water. And if inadvertently I accidentally broke a commitment, I will make it right and then some. It's my nature. It's who I want. Those people are the people I want in my life. Those who I want for business partners. Those who are the people I want for friends. And so if there's probably one thing that I respect among all, is the ability for someone to be able to make a real commitment. And so I'd say that word alone is number one. The other thing that I think I respect in others, and this is the kind of person I want to be, and it ends up being sort of a difficult one, I think, for a lot of people who are success driven, growth oriented, but it's humility. And I think finding a way to come across as somebody who's humble and likable and a team player, yet insanely driven. You can't help if you're insanely driven.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you think you're better than everybody else. It doesn't mean that you are, that you are judgy or judge.
Or you steamroll over people. Yeah.
People that are judgmental. I mean, oh my gosh, those are very tough people for me to be around. And I hope I never come across that way. And I really respect humility in others, and I invest into people more who are committed and humble than I do people who have talent or great ideas. So to me, humility is key. And then I think the third one that comes to mind is authenticity. And I think realistically, you talked about imposter syndrome, and I think we all maybe go through periods of our life where they say fake it to make, you got to fake it till you make it. But in reality, we're so much more successful, likable, if we can put ourselves out there as being human and authentic and, really real, I'll say. So, none of us is really does anything but put our pants on one leg at a time. And any time that we aren't very transparent about who we are, I think we're doing a disservice to the people that are closest to us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love those core values, and I think they're fairly similar to mine. I think commitment / loyalty, kind of almost on the same area for me. My number one big one that I just will not let compromise on is integrity, right? Of being the person that you are to the public and who you act to public, being that person. And it goes back to authenticity too, but being that person within yourself and who are you when no one else is looking, right? And I feel like that's a really, really important one that I hold myself to a high value at, and I hold other people to. You know, if you're saying one thing outside and then you're doing another on the backside, I just don't have patience or time for those kinds of people. So those are one of my huge core values too that drive me. One of the other things that I was thinking about too was our similarities in the realm of sales, right? There's not a problem that sales can't solve, right? And I think through your career and doing what you're doing, the phenomenal achievements that you've made of selling a business, you were able, like you said, you hit that $20 to $35 million mark and you're like, oh man, we're stuck here. We want to break through and get to that next level, right? And the struggles that go through reaching those different breakthrough points from 6 figures to 7 figures, from 7 figures to 8 figures. And throughout those points, sales is the foundation and the key to all that. So if I were to ask, what is your superpower? Would you say that sales is one of those superpowers?
I don't know that I would say that. I think if I had a superpower, although, I was responsible for driving some revenue, I think the ability to put people in my life that can help me to accomplish what I want to accomplish as a teammate. I think if I had something that, and I don't know that I would call it a superpower because I've struggled at this many, many times, but if there's been anything that's been key to any success that I've had or our companies have had, or the football teams I've coached or the baseball teams I've coached, it's the ability to find a way to get the right people on a team working together, get the right people on the team, finding a way for them to rally and ultimately get some chemistry going, more out of what more out of what they had than their talent, bring the different diverse sets of experiences and talents together and really find a way to put a winning team on the field and get something accomplished. And of course, in business, that's sales. In football, that's putting the ball across the goal line or keeping the other people from scoring. So, I feel like it's really in and around the connection with the key influencers on a team and bringing those teammates together for the common goal and the common cause. And in those things, that's not easy, but you end up finding ways. You learn little hacks for that.
That's right.
As you get older. But that to me has been my key because I really didn't have any specific superpower that I felt like I owned it. I was more of the generalist in business that was good at convincing. If it was selling, it was in convincing my teammates and other people kind of go along with the cause.
Selling your vision. Yep.
Vision, yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, what I look at in just overall entrepreneurship from the people that I've worked with, the clients that I have in my own business and my wife's business, and all the different people that I've seen over all the years I've been doing this, the biggest area I see that people struggle with is people. And finding those key people. I mean, 14 years into this, I've had 35, 40 people that have come into my company and come in and gone. And it's been a lot of my learning lessons on my side of how to get the right people together, get the chemistry to come together. That has been, as we know, in this world, there's no limited amount of money. The amount of money that can be produced, we just produced $7 trillion out of thin air, right, to keep the economy going during this crisis. So there's no shortage of money. There's no shortage of talent. There's no shortage of even probably work ethic. But what the shortage is of commitment and of those relationships, of actually being able to find those right people to put into those places. And that's where I've struggled the most over my career. That's probably set me back on multiple occasions, just having those headbutting, bringing in the wrong peoples, wrong personalities, mixing the wrong, having too many chiefs and not enough Indians, all those different types of things. And so that's, I would say, is a really great point that you brought it to, is finding those key people.
Well, I think a lot of times people get underestimated too. You look at the I use the C student analogy a little bit. Nobody wants to get in the car with a bunch of people that are no fun to be around, right? So we want to put people in our life that people want to get in the car with, right? That's those first few people who get in the car with you and start cruising around. Those ones are the key ones to get right.
Yep.
Otherwise, nobody's going to get in the car with you guys. It's not the cool place to be. So I think if you look at, if I judge talent many times, it might be different than other people, because other people may look for degrees and grade point averages and different high marks associated with being scholastically driven.
Yeah.
But I like to look for the person that can get the people to jump in the freaking car with them, right?
Yeah.
There's value there, regardless of what his SATs show.
Yep.
There's value if the guy can or girl can get people to jump in the car with them. That's value, my friend. That's leadership, and that stuff. Those things start showing up when people are 8, 9, 10, 12, 18, 27, right? And it doesn't make that the only way to lead. I'm just saying those type of skills are invaluable. And you look at if there's something that is a superpower, it is knowing. I love about myself that I know that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I would agree. I mean, I remember when I first met Brian after the tags, or at the Tag Talks event that we had, and then going to Lance's office and having a conversation. He goes, man, Brian's got the dream job. And I remember going, man, he's working with Mark. He does have the dream job. And I didn't really know Brian. His personality stood out to me just from that one short interaction I had with him. I'm like, yeah, but Brian's awesome. And then I got to know his mom, and I'm like, he comes from a great family. And then just the timing of it all, how it all came to be, was just incredible. I couldn't have planned it any better myself. And so being able to spot those opportunities, and then when those opportunities show up, be able to jump on them and go, okay, I'm ready to do this, and take those risks, right? You got to be a risk taker. So what I wanted to ask you, because as a mentor, like, I look at you, and I'm sure there are many people that are watching this, Jay Hornbuckles and Raul's and the different people that are in my circle. What are some of those red flags and some of those identifiers when you have the wrong person in your company?
Oh, good question. We talked about commitment and humility and authenticity. I think if they're not showing signs of that, they're probably not. Those are red flags. If you see marks in that,
Yeah,
it's kind of easy to see when people start breaking commitments. Something as simple as, what time did you get to work each day? And I think on the flip side of that, I think a lot of us need to look within ourselves, right? Because I think I'm going to try to change your question a little
that's okay.
bit, because I mean, it's easy to talk about all the things that we don't want in our friendships and in our relationships, but realistically, how do you become the best friend or the best employee, or how do you get picked up as a business partner? How do you get discovered? And I think a lot of times people don't think about, like, wow, I have this inside, but I'm so shy, I'm embarrassed about showing what I'll call a full speed attitude, right? Is it okay to outwork my teammates? Is it okay to be great, right? Is it okay to run on a job site, or back and forth to the UPS truck? Is it okay to be the first one to get there, the last one to leave in your business? Is it okay to use ultimate creativity in order to do something special, and saying thank you to somebody? It's like, it's okay to be different. It's okay to be unique. It's okay to be great. And I think giving ourselves the license to be that, like, really unique individual that makes an impact. You mentioned a guy like Jay Hornbuckle. He's a guy that makes an enormous impact in the way that he helps entrepreneurs, the way that he shows up, the positive approach that he takes,
Authenticity.
to people. It's like, you know what? He's great at that. He's gifted in that realm, and it's like, it's okay to bring out your gifts. And I think so many of us, I could talk about all the things we shouldn't do, but maybe if we spent most of our time thinking about what we should do, where we should be spending our burning our calories and spending our time, it should be figuring out ways to be different, ways to be great.
Yep. Okay. Well, there's so much stuff running through my head, and I think we could probably talk for another half an hour, but for the sake of time, I have one last question, one thing that I want to do that I think could make into something great even with this content. And if you were sitting in front of your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self today?
Just be you. Yeah. So I'm 18. I'm the third of four kids, all 1 year apart. On the day I graduated from high school, June 8th, 1981, I had just turned 18 in May. My best friend turned 18 that day. He bought his first house that day on his 18th birthday, right? So my circle of friends were driven, athletic type guys, people in high school. I was sort of the guy that threw the great party. Grades weren't as important, focused on football and baseball, stuff like that, and really having a good time. My brothers and sisters, 4.0, right? Driven, right? And here I am kind of coming around as the guy that throws the great party. And I felt inferior. I will admit that as much success as I had in my social life as a young person, I was really concerned about how I might succeed in business. And, I probably have a lot of still, and maybe that's still here, is I still have a lot of insecurities around being worthy to my mom and dad and to my brothers and sisters. But you know what? I think we have to let ourselves off the hook and realize we all have greatness inside. I may not be great at what you're great at, but I can be great at something. And so be okay with who you are in your own greatness, and spend some time thinking about what you are great at. And I have been doing that. I through high school, I was the guy that threw the party where everybody wanted to come. I had the hottest girls. I had the coolest guys, the most badass high school parties that you might imagine. And you know what? I've been doing that ever since. And I did it by using my own advice, just be you. And all that time I spent doubting myself and am I worthy? It's like, that's just a waste of time.
Waste of energy. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So last thing, what is the next step? What is the current vision, dream, mission that Mr. Mark Haney's on? What are you working on right now? Tell me a little bit about, you touched on it slightly in the middle of this thing, Sacramento Growth Factory and the businesses, but give us a quick rundown of it.
Sacramento Growth Factory, we're helping entrepreneurs to grow right here in the hometown we love. My teammate Rick Spencer is heading up that project. So if you're a business out there that wants to grow, you should come over, talk to us. We're great at helping people realize their dreams. I've got 40 plus portfolio companies that we've helped. Now we're systematizing the crap out of it because I've got Rick on my team leading this. So that's a big focus here at business. I touched on Haneyville. I'm building this totally unique family compound. It's something I'm as excited about as anything. And then I also have a podcast, which, at the Mark Haney Show, which is, we touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to take a new lane. I'm still focused on entrepreneurship, but more broadening it to the holistic entrepreneur. How I'm going to take my own health journey to my audience, to our audience, about how realistically we can be these driven entrepreneurs who know when to sprint, and sometimes we don't know when to not sprint, right? How to take our health, our personal well-being, mind and body into consideration as we're and take that driven personality, that obsessive positive part of our personality around winning, and tie that to a journey that also doesn't destroy our health in the process. So I'm doing that with myself. And so I'm going to kind of tend to share that throughout our podcast and have different health experts sort of join me as the guinea pig, if you will, as somebody who cares about that. And I really hope we can help entrepreneurs to be thinking about entrepreneurship from a holistic standpoint.
That's beautiful. A event that I was actually supposed to go to, it was June originally, then they pushed it to August, and now it's just going to be virtual. I think it's like August 20th. My buddy Nicholas Bailey does something similar where he actually talks about the three-dimensional businessman and actually having, like, I think it's health, wealth, and not fitness, but something along those lines of like just your inner self and becoming a well-rounded business person, entrepreneur in general. And I think that and he's really young, and he's like 20, in his early 20s. And so I think being able to have both of those perspectives, I'd love to connect you with him because he's a mover and shaker, already wrote a book, hooked up with Russell Brunson's Inner Circle. I mean, he's just doing incredible things, and that synergy between you guys you could have some incredible conversations. So I'll get you two connected.
Great. That sounds great.
Yeah.
And again, thank you for what you do, Adrian. I know we're out of time, but and I get a little long-winded as
Me too.
asking me these questions, but
Me
thank
too.
you for what you do. Happy to help. Look forward to continued collaboration with what you're doing and what I'm doing. This is why we talk about this stuff. We're a lot more alike than we are unalike, and I think we can find ways to work together as the months and years go by.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you, man.
God bless you, brother. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode with Mark Haney. It's been an amazing episode, a lot of amazing wisdom and knowledge that he was able to share with us. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time. There was more I wanted to get into, but maybe we'll do a number 2 later on down the road. But I'm just grateful that you guys got to hear from him, hear his passion, hear his story, and just pick up the gold nuggets that he shared with you guys today. So make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe, so you can get notified when we do more of these shows. We're working on some great names, some great people that we want to be able to share their knowledge and their passion with you with as well. So God bless you guys. Thank you for watching. And as always, keep looking up.